Welcome to the Women's Business Workshop podcast. This is Robin Walker, your host and business coach. We talk a lot on this podcast about business owner mindset, overcoming all of the things that get in our head as we step into the role of business owner, and honestly, even years and years into it. As I've been coaching female entrepreneurs and business owners, I've noticed that women often struggle to make decisions in their business. They overthink it, they're underpricing themselves, and they're not paying themselves enough. It's also common to be inconsistent with their activities and be too hesitant to sell or ask for referrals and reviews. Does any of this resonate to you as a business owner? I work on these things with business owners in one-on-one coaching and also in our Impact Business Circle. But I thought it was time to bring these ideas to you in a format that was really easy to fit into your summer schedules. This summer, you can join our group online workshops that will cover these topics, as well as the strategies, scripts, and habits that can help you get out of your own way so you can reach your business's potential. But it starts with you, my friend. If this sounds like it might be a good fit for you, and I know there's some of you saying, yep, I really need this. You're right, Robin. Go to womensbusinessworkshop.com/unlock to see the dates and details. If you register by June 24th, you can get all 3 workshops for a great deal. If you'd rather just sign up for 1 or 2, you can do that as well. But I would love to see you in the group. These will be live. They will be engaging. We'll have planning sheets. This will be something that you are glad that you did not miss. Speaking of business owner mindset, today's episode is a discussion about the ups and downs of business ownership, all the feelings we go through, the struggles, and how to overcome our own reservations when it comes to putting ourselves out there. I was fortunate to have Kate Carter join me for this topic. Kate is a life coach and the owner of Kate Carter Coaching. Kate works with her clients through one-on-one coaching or group coaching and helps them with their personal and professional goals and dreams. All right, welcome, Kate, to the Women's Business Workshop podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And we just got to meet in person, which is always fun.
We did at your
at
fabulous
the Lakeside
conference. Yep.
Yes, it's always fun to meet online friends in person.
3-dimensional.
Yes, you actually exist. We talked a lot at the conference about upper limits, where we're limiting ourselves as small business owners. In your work as a life coach, where do you see business owners or women in general getting stuck, where it's fear really is what's holding them back?
Great question. And I've got a bit of an answer to this, so bear with me. A lot of times, what we think of as fear is just a small piece of what fear is. So the way I work with women is helping them overcome emotional fear. So to do a little bit of deeper jump into this, we have physical fear wired in our bodies to keep us physically safe, AKA alive, right? We have emotional fear wired in our brains to keep us emotionally safe. And that means to keep us safe from feeling like we're not enough. Whatever version of that runs in us, right? Whether it's, I don't want people to know that I might be a failure, or that I don't want to look stupid, or what if people don't like me, or what if I feel foolish, or what if I actually try this and I realize, oh gosh, I'm kind of worthless, I can't do it. All these things that are unconscious that run through us. So when we go to do something that's unknown or new or scary, and every businesswoman, every owner that's listening to this right now is like, yeah, every day, like all day long, our brain, our default wiring, our brain will actually work against us. So it'll actually try to stop us. And it seems silly. You're like, yes, but I want this. But the brain's like, oh, I don't know. I always ask my clients to think of their brain, their default brain wiring, as their personal Secret Service team. They surround them 360. They've got the little thing in their ear. They're looking around, and everything's a negative threat. Everything's a bad idea because that might not work out, or this could happen, or you might look silly, or you don't really know what you're doing. That person, Sally, she knows what she's doing so much better. Whatever it is, it's always going to be a threat. So it's no wonder, one, some days as a business owner, it's hard to get out of bed and be like, okay, I'm doing it again. And two, why, when we want to go after our dreams, we feel like we're almost in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
And we relate emotionally different to physical fear and emotional fear. So here's an example, not mine. Great coach Shirzad Shamin from Positive Intelligence. We put a hand on the hot stove. We immediately take it off. We do not leave our hand on that hot stove, right? Because that would be so painful. The pain is a helpful alert. The same thing with, we can call them negative emotions or draining emotions like shame, doubt, exhaustion, confusion, overwhelm, paralysis. When we're feeling those are actually just symptoms that our fear wires have been triggered in our brain, our emotional fear wires. And instead of taking our hand off the hot stove, we tend to first identify with those feelings and then beat ourselves up for them. Right. And so, whereas they're a helpful warning, like, oh, one, I'm doing something that's new, and yeah, there are real risks here, and I still want to do it. Or two, this could, bring something different into my life, or this really could, we try things all the time as business owners. This could fail.
Mm-hmm.
This could fail. And to the fear wiring of the brain, failure, bad, bad, bad. Right. Even though
Right.
as business owners, we know
There's no tigers here. There's
there's
no
no tigers
tigers.
here. Exactly. You said that
Like,
right. There's no tiger in the room. So, yes. So, a lot of what I do with clients and really want to help free, especially women business owners from, is that identifying with those emotions. I like to call them the I suck speeches in my head. Like you want to do something and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't, I couldn't, I never. And so take our hand off that emotional hot stove and realize that those feelings coming up, shame, guilt, overwhelm, exhaustion, confusion, those are symptoms of emotional fear. And they're actually our friends. Because all of a sudden it's like, oh, look at that. I'm feeling really doubtful, maybe like an imposter. Oh, fear's up. My default wiring's acting, trying to keep me safe. Okay. So one, it makes us more aware. And it's actually a good sign. This is a harder thing to believe because it feels so miserable. None of us wake up on a day where we feel like we're a total fraud and be like, great, I can't wait to face my day. This is going to be fantastic. But those feelings only come up because we're stepping out of our comfort zone. That's the only reason they're up.
mm-hmm.
So it's actually a good sign. And if we can shift our relationship with those feelings, we can actually change quite a bit.
And I see a big gap for a lot of women in that insight piece of recognizing and calling out those actual feelings, that the fear is maybe more subconscious and they don't acknowledge. It's like, well, this doesn't work, or the self-sabotage, and don't even realize, no, it's actually a different feeling.
Yep.
So how do you get to that insight of labeling that emotion, let's say?
Yep. I do some teaching in my coaching, right? So there's some education about our brains and how we're wired and how emotional fear works. There is disproportionately, I do not know why, women identify with those feelings. It seems like more easily. This is anecdotal. Don't
Mm-hmm.
take this as
Sure.
scientific research. But in my experience, women tend to feel more imposter syndrome, more self doubt, more of that, and then tend to identify with it. So it's honestly presence and practice. Insights are great. You know this. You're a coach. The practice is the most important thing. Building those new neural pathways, building those new muscles, and so it takes practice with support.
Mm-hmm.
Practice with support. That's really it. And someone mirroring back to you. Okay, hear this. Could it also be this?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so hard to see ourselves. So I don't know about you, but I still get coached every week. Like I'm,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
lifelong in coaching because I can't always see myself. So it's practice. It's practice and being willing to take the risk to see it.
Right.
Right. And sometimes it's a real risk, right? Because we have these stories like unconsciously wired in us since we were little, which is why it's a
Mm-hmm.
little different for each of us how I might not be enough, right? But I think you can ask 9 out of 10 women and they say, oh, yeah,
Sure.
I worry of not being enough, feeling like I'm not enough. I feel that. But each incarnation of that is a little different. Yeah. So just giving them the space to hear it, what it really is.
I'll ask myself, and this was from my coach. I agree. Every coach needs a
Yep.
coach. Why does this feel so hard, or why does this feel so uncomfortable? And just asking myself, you're mad about it, or you're feeling this other cover up emotion, stopping and saying, why does this feel so uncomfortable? What about it is making me overthink and asking yourself, how am I contributing to
That's
this
great.
problem or this limit or this failure of the thing? Did I actually do, and I see that with when people launch things, did you actually do all the things you needed to do to make this successful? You did not. So let's go back and say why one email felt like enough.
Yeah. That's me. That's me in social media.
It's like, was that actually self-sabotage? Was that
Right.
fear of success?
Right.
Was it, I don't know what to say, so I'm just not going to say anything because whatever I say isn't going to be the right thing?
Yep.
You can really overthink all of it, but if you don't stop and say, why am I feeling this way?
Absolutely. And yeah, just be with it, learn from it, because feelings are information, right? They're energy and information. And you're bringing up the
Mhm.
fear of success, which I love, because not love the fear of it, but I mean that's a
Yeah.
big thing for me. I know that's a big thing for other women I've worked with. Those upper limit things, like Gay Hendricks, right? Like
Mhm.
we have unknown stories about what we deserve and what we don't deserve, or what's okay and what's not. And underneath that is fear because I never saw that, or my parents tried that and it failed, or yeah, it's not just fear of failure. It's we also get scared of things being too good. When's the other shoe going to drop? I want to
Which
brace
is
for it. I want
so
to be ready
wrong.
for it.
So why
it's
do we
so
do this to
it's
ourselves?
so human. Well, I don't know. I mean, read the Big Leap, right? That's got
Right,
some
right.
answers
Yeah,
in there.
phenomenal book.
Um, my I am not a neuroscientist, but I have been doing a lot of studying of this and working with people on it. And my best thing I see so far, with a grain of salt, is that anything new or unknown feels like a threat. It could be scary, it could be bad,
Mhm.
could be good, but it could be bad. And we err on our brains default to survival, right? So once we get in there and realize, okay, these are how my default tripwires lay. These are the minefields in my mind. And like you said before, the best news of all is that it's really mostly about us. I love Taylor Swift Antihero. Hey, it's me, I'm the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh
Like,
gosh.
right? And it's the best thing because it was somebody else. We can't do anything about it. But inside, we really can change so, 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 so much. You know, false narratives that run through us, even though we know they're not true here, like I'm pointing to my brain,
Mhm.
intellectually, to embody it is a whole nother level of vulnerability, right? And so,
Mhm.
one, having to have it all together all the time, having to know all the answers before you start, right? That's a thing that runs through us. Always be red carpet ready in whatever version that means in your business. Two, pushing ourselves hard with harshness works is the best solution. Really being hard on ourselves. That is a narrative I come up
Is a myth you're
is a
saying.
myth.
Yes,
Absolute
yes. Yeah.
myth. Absolute myth.
Mhm.
And studies now show that yes, you can win a short-term battle. You can do well in the short term if you're really tough on yourself, but over the long term, you actually won't reach your highest potential. That treating yourself with empathy and curiosity and kindness and compassion, um, and loving yourself more actually takes you a lot farther. And to boot, you can be happy while you're doing it. I turned 50 3 years ago and I was like, I'm officially just here for the fun. So I'm all into letting go of that misery. But I think for our habitual wiring, that's a scary sell.
And we have enough people being hard on us.
Oh gosh, yeah,
We don't need to be hard on ourselves.
totally.
let's let's be the at least the one person in our day to day that we know is going to be kind to
Totally.
ourselves.
But I don't know about you. Well, one, I have an inner critic that could be the dictator of a not so small country somewhere. Like I've gotten to know her well over the last 30 years. But most of the women I know and work with, it's easier for them to be kind and compassionate to a
Mhm.
friend than it is with themselves. I think that's changing. I think we're seeing a massive sea change in that. And it's still vulnerable work.
And as a solopreneur, if you are just in your own business day to day, you don't have that support system or the coach stopping you to say, this failed for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing, but
Nope.
let's look at what your actions could do different, or this is where you're limiting self. If you're just head down day to day in your business, you can't even
Mhm.
stop to see it.
That's such a good point, and I think that's such an important. I mean, I've been a solo entrepreneur now for, I guess, 2.5 years. And if you had told me 5 years ago I was going to do this, I would think you were insane. But one of the things I can't agree with you more on is just finding community, right?
Hmm.
Finding community. Women tend to really thrive in connection. If you're a woman solopreneur and you do feel alone, I would say step one before anything is find some community, find people who can support you. Not just networking groups, that can be different, those can be good, but people who you can really go back and forth with when you're stuck or you're struggling.
That will gently call you out,
Yeah.
that will call you out in a loving way and not a critical way, but in a way to help you see what you're
Yep.
maybe not seeing.
Yep. 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 And I exactly, I think when we get stuck, one of the most important things is that, few seconds after we realize we're stuck, we will probably catch a judgment in there. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? Why do I just keep screwing up? Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe it's not going to work out. And just say, oh, look at that. I'm judging it. I have no idea what this means in this moment. Can I be gentle with myself? Can
Mm-hmm.
I become curious? Right. Just shifting that practice, because our judgments, even if they're right sometimes, they're not always helpful. Discernment's a different thing, right? Where you discern,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what was going on? What's the context? What was helpful? What was not? It's more complicated than judgment, good, bad.
And what a mental roller coaster. What just to talk on what you were, I mean, we
Yeah.
are so in our heads.
Yeah.
And the
Yep.
one day this business doesn't work, I'm quitting, I'm getting a
Oh,
job. And then the
totally.
next day it's, oh my gosh, I got
Totally.
this fantastic. I'm so good at what I do. And it is
Yep.
like one little thing can just throw you off. And then
Yep.
you're in your head, you're overthinking, and
Yep.
it's just such a roller coaster. And doesn't matter how many years you've been in it.
That's comforting.
New
Thank you.
level, new devil, you know.
I'm feeling better already.
Well, yeah, as you go higher and higher and increase, there's just always something else that you're trying that's new, which is a good thing, but that comes with it this whole other headspace and mindset.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. That has been my experience so far. Absolute roller coaster, up and down, a whole new invitation to release expectations and try not to control the results, right? But be where you're at, doing everything you can and letting that go. That's something I work a lot on, because expectations come from fear.
I think female small business owners, and maybe this is across the board for small business owners, but especially entrepreneurs where you have started this yourself, you've created it, are probably the most insightful, self aware people I've ever met because we
Mm,
have had to go through such
yeah.
work to
Yep.
get to a place to say, I deserve this pay, I
Mm,
deserve this price, or what I offer has an equal value to this price, however you want to word that. When we were both teachers,
hmm.
someone told me what my value was, how much I was worth as an employee, and you just go do your job. I know there's a lot more to it, but different than a business owner where you are second guessing every decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Chief decision maker, right? I heard that early on in this process. You are now a chief decision maker. I was like, well, that's new. So,
And you don't have necessarily a group to get feedback other than maybe a mastermind group or a coach or something. In the end, the buck stops with you.
it does. It does. And that's why I think you're saying, like, the roller coaster, right? And so a big thing,
Mm-hmm.
like in my coaching, that I love working on is so many times that roller coaster comes up and it feels like a brick wall, right? Like we hit a real point where, like, it's not gonna, I can't do nothing, right? Nothing gonna happen. But the more we get to know ourselves inside, the more we challenge that default wiring, um, it becomes a wave you surf instead of a wall you slam, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
lows can come a little higher and the highs can go a little higher. Everything goes up a little bit on like a sine curve. So, um, one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it's also, I mean, I've learned so much about myself in the last 2.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so,
The
so, so
personal
much.
growth.
Yep. Yep. And exactly
Yeah.
what you said, trusting myself, trusting that, my experience has authority and is valuable and can benefit others, right? Or just taking up space, right? For women, sometimes it's just
Mm-hmm.
so hard to step into our voice and take up some space.
And I don't think you have any idea this is coming. When you start a business, you're like, I'm
Oh God, no, I would have never done it.
I
Right.
am going to sell this thing for this price and people are going to buy it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, I
Yeah.
maybe will have an office, I maybe won't. You think the financials the
Mm-mm.
big thing? It is like you are going to be a totally different person
The
through the
emotional.
process.
Oh, if I had known, I would have never done it. Yeah, if I had known, I would have never done it. I jumped in thankfully very naive because I would have run screaming, right?
I think we all do.
Um,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have children, but I have a lot of siblings that do. It's like having kids. If you fully know what it would be like, we would have depopulated years ago because no
Yeah.
one would
And
take the leap.
you
Yeah,
forget, which is why there's not single child families. You forget
right,
what those
right. You
early
get
days
more.
are like. Same with the next time you launch your new
Yeah,
thing, or,
yeah.
every time you host an event, you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot how much work this thing
Yeah,
was.
yes, yeah. No, it's so true. And the last 2 weeks, I've been just doing some reflecting and really trying to, check my own fears, right? And just sit with stuff.
Hmm.
And one of the things I've done is just made a list of all the things I've done in the last 2 years. And not necessarily a thorough list, not, but I just wrote like, oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
sold my house and moved across the country and I decided to start my own business. And so for anybody who's like in a space of challenge, I would say look back and just make a list of like, I don't know, 10 things you've done in the last few years and how amazing they are, because that's the other side of the
Hmm.
story. Our brain is wired to always tell us the things we haven't done, could have done better, should have done more earlier, whatever, right? And instead looking back and seeing, oh my gosh, like I've done so many things I never knew I could do just in the last 2 years.
I keep my thank you cards up on a bulletin
I
board
love that.
so that even if I'm not reading them, you look over there and you're like, okay, just keep going.
Yep.
The world is not over because this one thing didn't sell or you had one comment or whatever. Just keep moving forward.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I used to, the girls I taught, the high school girls, I used to tell them to keep an I love you file because high school's so hard for girls. And I
Hmm.
was like, anytime you get a nice note or a comment, when you write it down and put it in a little file or envelope because you forget. You forget.
You do.
Yeah.
You really do. And I find that being a speaker, I've done some work recently on looking back at my stories so
Wonderful.
that you can include them in speeches and just different things that have happened to you throughout your life, and that has been really eye-opening.
Mm.
And I have found this with other entrepreneurs as well. You're like, well, I'm doing this new thing, and then you look back through your life and you're like, oh my god, I already did that, but it was a different
But it was
thing.
a different new thing.
Like I
Yeah.
Yeah, I ran the whole rush event for our sorority, a week long
Hmm.
equivalent of a conference.
That does not surprise me from what I know about you so far.
But I was thinking a conference, this was the first time, 8 years ago that I was doing it. It's like, no, it
Hmm.
wasn't. But you forget. How would I have forgotten that? But I did. So going back and
Because you
looking,
had children and started a business
right,
and
right. And it didn't feel hard back then. It did not feel hard because I was not so
no.
wrapped up in what if I do it wrong? What if I didn't care. I was like, cool. I'm
Yep.
20 years old.
Yep.
Sure, I'll take this on, no problem. And then over the years, I think we worry more about if it's good enough, what will people think?
And if you're running a business, there's stuff on the line.
Sure,
Yeah.
a
And
100%.
I will say that's one of the things I work on with my clients the most is letting go of attachments to results, right? I mean,
Hmm.
obviously you do good research, all of that kind of stuff, but we expectations and they are just so rough on us. So, the shoulds, the have tos, the musts, those all come from fear. Those all come from fear. And I always say, I have little stickers I give out, friends don't let friends should on themselves, because
Hmm.
it is so, 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 so hard. And what it does, it focuses all of our energy on trying to control a certain outcome. And so we miss the whole process, which is actually where we have power to influence the outcome.
Right.
And we make ourselves miserable in the
Yeah.
process. It's just not enjoyable. So bringing clients like back to the present and just, okay, what are you willing to practice today? What are you willing to try today? And be with it, give it your all, instead of this has to work, or that's not true.
Yeah.
Like we've never, you can't predict.
Right.
Have we ever had something that we thought was going to be horrible turned out amazing, and vice versa?
Or it
Yes.
led to something else. This was a
Right?
failure, but this one person
Yeah,
was in the
exactly.
audience that ended up leading to this other thing I didn't even know existed, which ended up being this phenomenal connection
Exactly.
or whatever. And
Yep.
and I say that with like
Yep.
revenue goals. You can't control your revenue specifically.
Hmm.
You can do activity to lead to the what you're hoping for, but you can't make people pay
Yeah,
you.
that's
You
great.
can't make people sign up for your events.
Nope.
You can do all the things in
Nope.
your control, but the outcome is not up to you.
And as someone who's very new to sales, was in nonprofit for the last 30 years, sales is a very uncomfortable place for me. I'm facing heaps of fears there. Um, when I when I'm tense about like, oh, I've got to make a sale, The whole thing goes off.
Mm-hmm.
I'm off. I'm not where I want to be as myself. It's not what I went into coaching for. So when we even get in that lock space, none of it works anyway
Right.
because we're not ourselves.
Right. And
Yeah.
I just think you can sense desperation,
Yes.
when
Yeah.
you are desperate, and you can't help that sometimes, especially when you're first starting out.
Oh gosh.
And you
Yeah.
have bills to pay and you
Yep.
quit your job and
Yep.
everything feels so urgent and so important, but people sense it and then that scares them.
Yeah.
Like, why is she so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
desperate?
no one, no one wants a desperate coach. Yeah. But, and all of that again,
Yeah.
coach growth, right? Letting go, letting go, letting go,
Right.
which only makes us better coaches in the long run.
And it happens over and
Yeah.
over again. You hire,
Yep.
you get
Yep.
to a higher level, you hire employees.
Yep.
Now revenue makes a really big deal because they are counting on
Depending
it
on
for
you.
their mortgage.
Hmm.
So now there's a new level of that desperation of we have to make these sales. So it's
Right.
not like it creeps up, and not to say that to like scare people, but being aware of it and seeing, okay, I recognize this feeling.
Exactly.
I can't remember what I'm supposed to do, so I'll call my coach
Right.
or
Right.
my counselor or
Right.
whatever
Right.
your group, but I recognize this feeling.
Right. Oh, that's up. It's not me. It's the emotion. It's the brain wiring. It's whatever. Get some
Hmm.
space between it. Yeah. And then get support if you need it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the more we do that, the easier it gets.
So if someone's listening and they're thinking, okay, I think I recognize the fear is holding me back from this, and it is the
Hmm.
emotional fear versus the physical fear.
Hmm.
What are some things they can do? Just some simple steps. If, obviously we mentioned if you have a coach or a small group, that's great to go to. If they don't have those things in place, what would you suggest as like a baby step?
Step one, when you recognize it, step one, be compassionate with yourself. Explore the feeling and bring empathy to it. Because when what we resist persists, right? And every time we fight with reality, we lose. So if you're experiencing it, can you open up to that with compassion?
Mm-hmm.
And then ask yourself, okay, what's going on here? Asking what's going on here without the compassion exploration first of the feeling we tend to go right to our head and judge and move. And we miss a lot of wisdom in there that we have to learn, and a lot of the growth that's actually being offered to us in these big leaps we take. And then take responsibility. That's from Rhonda Britton, the woman who taught me to coach: compassion, honesty, then personal responsibility, in that order. In that order.
Mm-hmm.
But just slowing down, exactly what you're saying right before this question, just slowing down, um, feeling it, being present to yourself with kindness and love, and then reaching out for help or taking a step. And honestly, when we're really stuck, any step helps, any movement forward. I did not want to be on social media. I'm only on social media because I started a business. I've been on it now for 13 months. And mostly a lot of other people posting for me. The way I started with it was so scary to me. I just started, I thought about it for a week, and then I gave myself a shout out every night. Look at that. I thought about that for 5 minutes today, because that's how scary it was. I didn't want to be on it. And I use that example because for most people, social media is a no brainer, but I was like, not interested.
I think it's different if it's social media for you personally. Like, here's a picture of my dinner or whatever. But as a business owner, that it's just totally different
Yeah.
level. Oh, I'm supposed to take a video of myself. I'm
Totally
supposed to
different.
post pictures of myself.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Thought
it's
leader, what?
it just really throws you into a whole different
Yep.
atmosphere of fear and self criticism and all the
Yeah.
things.
And that is all an amazing opportunity, right?
Hmm.
The miss would be not to explore that and learn from it and grow from it, because there's so much wisdom in all of that process. Usually what we do is like, I'm not supposed to be feeling this, or it's supposed to be easy, or I need to go faster, and we push through it, close our eyes, hope we never have to do it again, and we miss all of the growth. And what comes when we explore all of that is this beautiful like inner strength and confidence,
Hmm.
just from being honest and present with our own experience and taking the steps from there.
And sometimes you just got to throw it out there. Close your eyes,
You do. You
put down the
do.
laptop and just walk away and say,
Yeah, walk
sorry guys,
away.
that's what you get to look at in your feed because here I
Yeah.
come.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Releasing the
It's true.
outcomes,
So,
just like you said.
oh, completely. But yeah, so smallest step, compassion, and then smallest step you can take, doesn't matter how small, any tiny movement forward gets us gets us somewhere. And honestly, it's the tiny things we're really stuck that have the biggest impact. We think it's like, oh, I've got to get the whole thing done, but really you're on like a fear threshold or a terror threshold, and so it's just getting a little bit more over that threshold that is so important
Yeah.
at that time.
Journal about it or
Oh yeah,
research it a
yep,
little bit or just do
yep,
something. Yeah. Great advice.
yep. Interpretive dance it, whatever
Yeah.
works for you. I'm not a dancer,
I'd
but
like to see that on your social media, Kate.
not gonna happen.
That's when we know you you fully
right?
embrace social
I've
media
gone
is when
over.
you're dancing online.
I know my sales coach is like, okay, I want you to post a really vulnerable feed this week. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah. How about
Like
a
in
picture of
time.
myself?
Yeah.
That's why I have my conference so that I have a professional photographer to take pictures of me I can use on social media
Exactly.
all year
Exactly.
long and don't have to do as many
Oh, she was
impromptu
great.
pictures.
Yeah. Just slow down and be compassionate. I think that's just it is a superpower that we don't realize we have, self-compassion. And when we embrace it, it's just the most beautiful things happen.
Well, it's a great place to close us up for today. So where can people find you,
Yeah.
Kate, if they want to work with you in the future?
Yeah. www.katecartercoaching.com. There's a contact page on there. You can reach out to me and set up for a free consult and we'll chat.
And where can we see your social
Yeah.
media feed?
I think it's, oh gosh, I'm supposed to know this. It's like at, okay, at Coach Kate Carter, I think is what it is.
Okay. We'll
On
put it in the show
all the
notes
things.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay. Yeah.
If you want
Yeah.
people going there. That's up to
There's
you.
a little block there. Did you hear that? That's a little block.
That's an upper limits
Yeah.
issue. I think it's this. And then it's not the right link.
I'll talk to a crowd all day long.
Yeah.
Just social media is not my thing, And I'm doing my best. I'm showing up on it. I like the live, interaction.
For sure. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
A necessary evil. And I mean, it can have positive benefits, of
It has
course.
amazing effects. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is not a natural feeling for
Not
me.
for me.
Yeah. And it's been a lot of years and I still like, all right, haven't done a video in a while.
Time.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been great. And thank you for sharing your
Yeah.
wisdom. I hope all our listeners have been able to notice something about themselves in this conversation and something that you can take forward to help move past that fear and reach your dreams.
Great. Thank you so much for having me, Robin.
Thank you for being here. Okay, listeners, I'm not going to do my usual sign off that I do at the end of every episode because I am going to encourage you instead to go check out the workshops for the summer series about unlocking your business potential. Go to womensbusinessworkshop.com/unlock and let's get you set up for your most amazing business.